So anyway, welcome to our second applied NLP and hypnosis meetup. Glad you guys all made it. And today we're going to be going over state control and getting into artful anchoring because, a lot of people think of NLP as kind of, oh, I want to learn anchoring or I want to learn embedded commands. I want to learn all of these things. These pieces are very powerful tools, especially if you're working in a influence and persuasion situation, in a sales situation, in a lot of these other areas. Therapy as well, because when you're doing therapy or you're doing any type of coaching, these types of things work incredibly well. However, if you don't have proper state control when you are trying to do things like anchoring, you either limit yourself on the effectiveness of your anchoring, or it doesn't work at all. And it becomes kind of a guesswork as to whether it works or not. Having the right state when you anchor and when you fire an anchor is really the key to being able to have that anchor work whenever you want it to work. And it does work over a period of years, so if you're not in the right state of mind, if you're not able to convey that state to the other person, then it's just not going to be effective. And it becomes kind of an academic exercise. So let me ask you, Mark, what did you want to get out of this meetup today? You know what the topics are, but it's always good to be able to direct things to what the participants want.
Well, I'm looking forward to developing and understanding to anchoring. Like you said, it's kind of, it's not what you expect. And I just want to get better understanding so I could to empower myself and also to leverage. Well, I don't want to say leverage. I want to say more like enable the people that I work with or the people that I interact with to understand my perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And Richard had said he wants to do it in sales, and Tim, I take it you're also kind of in that influence and persuasion mode as well, correct?
Correct. Building a practice, trying to get more patients in.
Absolutely. So, okay, so let's start on the whole idea of what a state is. So a state is basically made up of emotions. It's made up of different types of emotions. That's why it's so easy to get thrown out of state whenever you don't know how to hold and maintain and build a very strong one. So, basically, if you've ever been in an influence and persuasion situation where you were not sure about what you wanted, and somebody came up to you and said, "Oh, well, we should do whatever it is." It's many times easier to go along with that person as opposed to, just saying, "Well, I don't think I want to do that." If you're kind of neutral about it, it's just easier to go along. And most people are kind of in that state where they don't have a strong stand for any particular thing. They're just kind of moving along and, hoping something will come up that'll excite their interests or, take them into a different experience. And that's where somebody with a strong state can come in and really be able to influence them. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but I have been in, I'm from Manhattan. And, in Manhattan, you get a lot of tourists. And I've been a tourist in other countries as well. So I understand there's a lot of confusion. It's exciting, but you don't always know where you're going or how to get to where you want to go. So I've had people ask me for directions on how to get to a certain place. And I gave them real directions, and I was absolutely convinced I was right. And as soon as they left, I started thinking, oh, yeah, that wasn't right. You know? And even if they were saying, well, that doesn't sound right, they went along with it. And that's because my state was more powerful than theirs. So if you think about it, there's going to be two states that are going on whenever you're interacting with another person. There's your state and the other person's state. And by that I mean it's your kind of your mental posture, your emotional posture, and how you feel about that interaction. So the more positive you are of your position, the stronger your state will be, as opposed to the other person who wants something. So Tim, I would say, for example, if you are, you're building your practice, and somebody says, why acupuncture? Right? If you give them, well, I kind of think this works, you might as well give it a try. That's not a very strong state, is it?
No, not in the slightest.
Yes, and it's not particularly convincing for the other people. It doesn't give them that feeling of doing it. But if a person is coming to you, especially in the situation where they need help, they're looking for you to direct them, and it is in your state that they're going to get that feeling of comfort and confidence that you have. Because I would imagine that if we're talking about acupuncture, because you know a lot more about it than I do, having only experienced it as a patient, I'm putting my trust in you to begin with when I come to you.
Right.
And so it's your state that's going to carry over into that. So Richard's in I know Richard, he's in real estate and is very successful in real estate. But Richard, if I came to you and I say, well, I wanted to buy a house, right? I'm interested in buying a house. And you say, well, I think this is a good house. I'm not sure, if it's well constructed or not. And I think the guys may have not taken care of it, but you can get a good deal. Does that sound like something?
No, no, scare them to death, probably.
Yeah, they probably run and run fast. And that's primarily because it goes towards the type of state that you're projecting to them. So it's okay to be open. It's okay to tell somebody when you don't know something. But at the same time, saying you don't know a particular fact is not the same as saying you don't know how to handle a situation, or you're not in command of the situation. If they ask you a question, has it had any major repairs, and you come to them and say, well, let's take a look at the house, I will find out the entire repair history for you. That again is a very different thing than saying, well, I just don't know. Richard?
Absolutely.
Right. So again, it goes towards the state that you're building and that you convey to the other person. Now, the interesting thing is that states get passed to the other person. And like I was saying before, we've all been in the situation where somebody has come into the room and just lit up the room. And that is a product of the type of state that that person has built, that the emotions that person is feeling and able to project to other people. Just like when somebody brings down the room is with the proverbial wet blanket, really destroys the mood of a room or the mood of a group. And we've all had that again when, either at work or in social situations. That type of thing is something that other people pick up on because we're all trained to, we wouldn't be around if we didn't have the sense of what's going on around us. And we can feel when somebody does not have a strong state that they're passing, or they have a state that is not comfortable for us. So that's why we get what's called the gut feeling about people. That's why, uh, we meet people, we feel really comfortable with them right away, or we don't feel comfortable with them at all. And it's all because of what they're giving out. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what makes up states. A state can be a simple state like confident or playful or happy. And you can feel that by bringing up memories of these types of things, right? So has there ever been a time when you felt incredibly confident about something, like you knew the answer and there was no question that you knew it? Feedback?
Yeah.
Really? Right. How did that feel to you?
Amazing.
Right. So have you always felt that way about in every situation?
No,
Right. What's the difference between when you felt it and when you didn't feel it?
in my body, it's different in my body.
In your body.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you felt confident, and I'm going to ask everybody, but I'm going to speak to Richard on this. Where did you feel it first?
Like in my stomach, and just
Mhm.
below my chest. It's like it was a raging feeling though. It wasn't a still feeling.
Yes, it had to move, otherwise it would habituate. So you feel it in your stomach first, and then it moves somewhere, it moves up to your chest.
Yeah.
Is it moving up the front or is it moving up the back?
Kind of inside and the front.
Okay, so it's moving. Is it moving up the front towards your back, or is it moving up the front away from you?
It's actually moving out of my, like almost, cause my arm in that position, my arms are out. It's
Uh-huh.
almost like rays coming out of, like a superhero.
Okay.
Rays coming out of my hands, up my arms and out.
Okay, so it's going from the middle, going out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. So what color is that feeling?
White.
White. Okay. Now I want you to feel where it starts. Notice that white color spreading out throughout your body,
Mm.
right? And before it leaves your body, have it come back into your body. Pull it back in. So it cycles.
Yeah.
Right. So you have that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now think about a time when you didn't feel that way, when you were not confident, right? And it feels different, right? It starts in a different place,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so now when you think about that time and you see what you saw, feel what you felt, hear what you heard, right? Put yourself back in that time and bring that white color starting from that spot in your stomach, moving all the way out, and then pulling back in that situation. How do you feel?
More confident, more resourceful,
Okay, so double the
more
white.
creative.
Double the white feeling.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay, double it again.
good. Yeah.
Okay, so do you see how things would be different by feeling that in that situation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now I want you to think about the next situation you have where you're a little bit unsure of how you're going to handle it.
Okay.
Okay, now
Yeah.
put yourself in that situation and generate that white color again. And again, and make it more vivid and double the feeling.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so now that you think of that with this feeling, do you have a better idea of how you'll handle it?
Yes, definitely.
Pretty cool, right?
Just handle.
Yeah. So this just shows that you can build a state and you can anchor it actually to yourself whenever you want. Right? Because all you have to do, Richard.
Yeah.
So now think about yourself. Just relax for now.
Okay.
You're here with us, right?
Yeah. Okay.
If you think the color white, what happens?
Mm. Yeah.
And you have control over how intense it is.
Yeah. I just did it. I just turned up and down the dial. It worked.
Right. Exactly. So that is the beginning of how we generate a state and then how we anchor it, because the state has to be generated in order for an anchor to work. A lot of people think if I say something and I touch a person or I wave my hand around, it'll automatically be anchored. It doesn't work that way. It works because it's a transmission of a feeling from one person to the other person, or a situational anchor is the things that make up that situation that create a loop in the mind in order to do it, but it's attached to a feeling, because otherwise you wouldn't feel it. So you see how quickly that can work and how you can build a state. So I'm going to ask each of you to pick a state like that's useful for you. Tim, would confident be useful for you?
Yes.
Okay. Mark, would confident be useful for you?
Definitely.
Okay. So one of the things we're always going to do is we're going to start with good states. We're not going to be, starting with, like depressed. What use is that? Right? The whole point is to feel good for no reason at all. And when you learn how to do this, you'll be able to generate the feelings and create them whenever you want, because when you're creating bad feelings, you're doing the same thing, except it's not necessarily useful to you. So the whole point of applied NLP and hypnosis is to give you stuff that's useful. And so what we're going to do is I want each of you to think about, when you feel confident, where in your body do you feel it first? And let me know when you've got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Richard, Tim,
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
you have it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So when you feel this, where does it move to? Because it has to move, otherwise you would habituate. So with Richard, it's expanding out. It could be rolling this way, it could be rolling this way, it could be moving this way or this way. Which way is it moving?
For me, it starts in the chest, goes up the throat, and then it'll either go out or up and down the back.
So either go out your head or
Kind of more out through the face, kind of like
out
where the
through
voice
the
comes
head.
out.
Okay, so it's moving this way for you, right?
Yep.
Okay, so before it can go away from you, pull it back in. And you notice that it becomes more intense.
A lot more intense.
Right. Give it a color.
It's a golden light yellow.
Golden light yellow. Okay, great. Spin it faster, double the speed.
Well, that more than doubles the strength.
Right. And then make the color exquisite. Make it the perfect golden for you.
That makes it a lot more solid.
Right.
Feeling.
Now make it sparkle if you want.
Intensifies.
Right. Now, you know what this feels like, you know what it looks like, right?
Yes.
If it's moving, can you hear a sound?
Yes.
Okay, good. What would you like to call this state?
Certainty.
Okay, certainty. Great. So, Tim, you know that because you've seen these things before, you can just relax for a second, and we're going to talk to Mark for a moment. So, Mark, where do you feel it?
Like in my belly.
Okay, in your belly, right? And where does it
Yes.
move to?
Then it moves to my solar plexus. It's like it's rising. It's like
Okay.
it's about to like jump out, kind of.
Okay, so it's rising, right? It's coming up.
Yes.
Is it coming up, going away from you like this, or is it going towards your back this way?
Toward my back this way, like like over and over and around, like
Right,
what
so
the
it's going
second one.
this way.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. So spin it faster, double the speed,
Okay.
and give it a color.
Like a silver light.
Okay, like silver. Okay, so make it sparkle. How does that make you feel?
Strong.
Okay, so make it as vibrant a silver as you can imagine. So it's perfect for you.
Yep.
Now double the speed.
Yep.
Okay. Does it have a sound?
Like a hum. Like a hum.
Okay. So you know what this sounds like, you know how it's supposed to feel. Now double it again.
Feels good.
Just good? You could do
Feels
better than
great.
that.
Feels very strong.
Well, spin it faster then. Make the hum louder.
Feeling great.
Okay. So now that you have it, think of a situation where you could use this.
Okay.
Okay. So how would this feel to be in that situation?
Certainty and absolute.
Okay. So when you go into this situation, what would you call it? What would you call this state? Give it a name. First thing that comes to mind.
Success.
Okay, great. So, okay, just hold with that. Relax for a minute.
Okay.
Tim, certainty. How do you feel?
Fantastic.
Okay, great. Now think of a situation that you might have coming up that you may not have had certainty in, but now you can just say to yourself, certainty.
All right. Yeah.
Can you think of ways that to handle this that are different than what you were thinking?
Definitely. It gives me a much better place because I go into a lot of doctors' offices and have to get through their gatekeepers.
Right. Exactly. And now when you approach them this way, it's just an approach. It's not like it means life or death or anything like that, right?
Right. It takes a lot of the pressure off because I'm good either way.
Right. Exactly. Because if you weren't sure, or if they felt that they could push you off, they probably would get the impression that you're not very confident in yourself and your abilities.
Right.
Right. But now it's totally different.
Definitely different place to come from.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So hold that thought. Mark, think of a situation where you maybe in the past did not have success. And now
yes,
generate this feeling of success. You called it success, so it's the way you describe it, success. Say it to yourself.
success.
How does it feel?
A change. It feels good.
Okay, think about yourself in that situation. How does it make you feel about that situation?
It feels good. It's like from bad to good.
Right. Okay. And think about now another situation that you may have coming up where you could use this state now. And think about how it would go when you generate this state.
Positive and confident.
Right. Okay, great. So that's the beginning. This is the beginning of generating a great state. You see how easy it is to do this. And yet, a lot of times we don't generate a really good state. We kind of go through life wondering about things or thinking up scenarios where we're not successful. Whereas this very simple thing, all you have to do is say the name for it and it brings it back. You can talk. Hello? Yes?
It's interesting. It's like on off switch, but
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that. How can you say that?
Simple?
Yeah, practical. That's simple. That is just that, but it's just the work behind it have to build up to it. Developing that state and all.
Okay, well, here's the thing, right? So you guys have just all created a very confident state, which is a very powerful state, in realistically like less than 5 minutes each. So can you imagine how easy it is to do this with other states that you may want, like playful or secure? Confident is a really good one, for just most situations. But curious is another good one, because sometimes it's good to be able to, ask questions, to be able to show somebody you have an interest in who they are and where they're coming from, as opposed to just always being too confident, because that creates resistance in a lot of people. People want to see confidence, but they don't want to see it to the point where it becomes arrogance, where it's just about your agenda as opposed to what the other person wants. And to do this, now you guys all have a great, what I would call a base state. Yes? Feel free to chime in.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah? And you can get this anytime you want, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what we're going to do next, now that you can control it, can you imagine having this if somebody was pushing back on you, like Tim, if somebody was saying, yeah, we don't believe in acupuncture.
Yeah, I do get that a fair bit, and generally go, well, neither do the rats that they try it out on, but it seems to work great for them.
Okay, so now generate certainty. Say to yourself, certainty.
Certainty.
Okay, well, feel it. Okay, now look, if I was to say, look, I don't believe in acupuncture.
That's okay. You don't have to believe in it. It still works. It's not based on belief. It's based on science and a knowledge of how the body actually works.
Okay, and how else would you handle this? What else would you do to handle this?
Generally, I would say, well, it would depend on if they're in front of me or not. Because if they're in front of me,
yeah, if they're in front of you, say for example, they're in front of you.
if they're in front of me, I would actually reach out and say, hey, let me see your hand there. And I would show them how pressing a point on their hand can relieve the back pain that they came in for.
Right, exactly. And that would be something very comfortable to do, right?
Right.
So if somebody was on the phone, couldn't you just say, hey, you know what? If I was to come down, would you allow me to demonstrate on you?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Or if I would just say, well, why don't you come down and actually, we can chat in person and I can explain more of this to you, or I can show you things.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you notice, Richard, Mark, did you notice how Tim's voice changed when he said that?
Yeah, it was like colder in the beginning. Then it warmed up a bit better, more connection and more confidence.
Yeah, it was almost, Tim, it was almost like the difference between having a comeback and having a discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Seems like it was more connecting.
Yeah. Did you feel that?
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, the first time I felt this uncomfortableness in his body the first time. And then the other time I felt he was comfortable with himself.
Right. And you see, when you generate that certainty, that actually allows you to relax and really speak to the person, as opposed to, it's not a feeling of pushback, it's a feeling of inclusion then.
Makes sense.
Right. And so that's another way to help deal with somebody who is pushing back. It's not necessarily to fight and to go head to head. A lot of times it's about going around their objection, because they're expecting you to have a comeback. Right. We're all in the situation. They're expecting a comeback. And that's where things like curiosity come in order to get around it. And we're going to build that in as well, because right now we have a very, this is what I call, again, a base state. And we're going to start building on that to build a complex state in order to be able to use it better. Richard, for you, so you have this base state, right? Of confidence. You know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody were to, push back on you about the price of a house or something like that, right, which I'm sure you get a lot. Everybody wants something for nothing. And push back on you in a situation where you may not have the upper hand on it. Generate that feeling, right? Think about that white color. And how would you handle it?
I said, of course, you're going to get the property that's right for you. So let's take a look at this property and let's see how they justified the price, if it even makes sense for you or not. Right. You mentioned that you wanted a double garage, and it has that, and it also has the gourmet kitchen. But obviously, you're going to buy what's comfortable for you. But let's go take a look. Let's see what they've got to offer.
Right. And did you guys notice how Richard's voice just softened when he did that? Tim, Mark, did you notice?
Yes, it kind of it's like, soften, like soften is the exact word. Like it was much more like, if I was talking to Richard, like if he was selling me, if I was his client, I'll be much more open after he softened up his voice.
Right.
Yeah, it created a very inviting ease in the way he spoke.
Exactly. And which is different from coming back and saying, well, this is a very good value, for a house of this size and that type of thing. Right. So again, that feeling, even though you guys can't even see each other because you don't have your cameras on, you're feeling it. That feeling is coming through. It's being conveyed through the voice. It's being, and when you see each other, when you do it face to face, it's also conveyed through your body language and who you are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mark, you try it now in what you do. So get this feeling, right? Imagine that silver color. You know the word for it. Bring it up and say you get pushback.
I'll be like, what can I do to help you out, to help you overcome what you're resisting?
Okay, well, say somebody says it's too expensive.
I'll be like, well, look at the value now versus the value like when you can help out your family and help out, to reach your goals, to reach your dreams with the opportunity that I'm presenting.
Okay. Did you notice how Mark's voice started getting softer as he started speaking more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that has to do with the feeling you're generating, because when you're generating this feeling, it's not like you're being attacked or anything like that. So you're not fighting back. What you're doing is you're presenting what you have. And whether or not they say yes is not the most important part. It's conveying the information. And you're confident in what you're selling, because look, if you're not confident in what you're selling, you got to find something better to sell, right? Because otherwise you'll be the sham wow guy, the pitch man, in the carnival, who's trying to get people to buy stuff and is a fast talker. But when you actually believe in the stuff, then it's very different. It's a different dynamic, and you're trying to share that with somebody as opposed to not. Now, again, this was a very quick thing to do. So let's imagine, let's go on to another one. Let's do another one that's be useful for you guys.
James, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What you said earlier about like confidence to curiosity, right?
Yes.
Like you have that confident energy, but you don't want to be too overwhelming that it'll come off as arrogance. Now, when you say curious,
Mhm.
are you saying curious in yourself, or are you trying to generate curiosity from the person that you're talking to, you're dealing with?
Well, it's actually curiosity in yourself by being curious about the other person. So we've all been in this situation, and I think I'm going to go into one because I have to go, like, either turn in my car or buy a new one. So I'm going to be in a situation where guys are going to want to sell me a car. And it's, we've all been in that situation where people have tried to sell us stuff. I mean, we're kind of in the position where we're selling things, but it's also very illustrative to the point when we're the ones who are on the buying end, right? So who here has had experience where somebody has tried to just sell us on something? The old hard sell.
Timeshare presentation.
I'm sorry, which one?
Timeshare.
Timeshare. Yeah, timeshare is a real one. I actually met somebody. She was very nice, and she was involved in timeshare, which I don't realize. I don't know why she was doing it, because she was nice, which is also probably why she was not as successful as she could be in it. But basically, timeshare is a very tough one because you're selling on a proposition, and for some people they like timeshares. Some people really, they know how to work the system. Personally, I don't understand it. That's why I don't do them, and I don't fall for that trap. But yes, timeshares is one. Anybody else have one?
Network marketing.
Network marketing, right. Again, very good for some people, not good for me personally, because if you're actually it, and I'll give them their due because people do make good money at it when they know how to work the system. So, if you're a very good system person where you follow their system, you can actually make good money at it. But I personally have a hard time doing that. I'm much more freewheeling in the way I operate. So I could never make money doing that. But yes, absolutely. Richard, did you have one?
Yeah, it's advertising. Somebody said, put your ads, in the supermarket so that when people are pushing the trolley, they'll
Oh, really?
like to see your name. And when I said no, he got really mad that I was that honest. I just said no, I don't want it.
And he kept trying to sell it to
He's
you.
used to people like saying, "Let me think about it. Let me talk to my manager." And I just said no, and he got really mad.
But you're the manager. So that's the problem. Okay, so we've all been in that situation where we've had somebody trying to sell us something, pretty much a hard sell. Well, here's the thing. That is a position where they are pushing what they want as opposed to trying to find out what we want, as the buyer. And so if we're always pushing what our agenda on the buyer, that creates a lot of resistance because nobody likes to feel like they're being sold something. So when I say curiosity is really good, curiosity allows us to approach somebody just with the idea of understanding what that person wants and whether we can help them get what they want. So in Tim's case, obviously, if you're approaching a doctor's office, you're probably good as opposed to saying, "Oh, you guys should have acupuncture as an offering. It's something that's widely accepted." Blah blah blah. That would be kind of a hard sell, wouldn't it?
Definitely. I always try and come in with the idea, well, let's find a way that we can cooperate. And, because I always look for better doctors to send my patients to.
Yeah, or even, hey, are you open to referring people for alternative treatments as well as standard treatments,
Okay.
right? Something
Yeah.
like that. Just opening a conversation, and we could be kind of nasty but because open-minded people do explore these types of which you can use because it puts an identity on them, which is if they want to be thought of as or think of themselves as open-minded, they're pretty much inclined to follow that. But that's another training. But yeah, so basically that is going towards the being curious about what the other person would want as opposed to what our agenda is. And I think you'll probably have noticed when somebody was trying to sell you something, they started speaking faster and faster and faster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it
Very
before.
scripted.
Yeah, because they're trying to get their script out before they forget or before you cut them off. Right. So it's the same way telemarketers do it, the same way a lot of other people do it. It's really a hard sell. And that's, again, they're trying to get the script out before they get cut off or before they forget something. And that is not creating a rapport with the person. And they're coming at it from the standpoint of wanting to push out what they have as opposed to being curious about the other person. So when they're pushing that, you get the feeling that they're not confident, they're not certain, right? They come off as desperate. And that's not an attractive feature for anybody. So let's play with curious. So have you ever been curious about something enough to, not just like, oh yeah, it'd be interesting to find out about that, but to actually research it, to actually go after it, to learn about something? guys?
Yes.
No? Okay, so you know what that is. You don't have to tell us. But when you're curious about something, where do you feel it?
Starts in my throat.
Starts in your throat and it moves, right?
Yep. Up to the face.
Okay. And then does it go down the back or does it go forward?
Down the back.
Down the back. Okay. So it's moving for you this way,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So now give it a color.
White.
Okay. Now spin it fast,
Okay.
double the speed. You can make it as white as you want. So it's the perfect white for you.
Mhm.
You can make it sparkle, you can make it flash, however you want it, just so it's right for you.
It's a lot stronger that way.
Yeah, it is. And you can give it a sound if you want, if there's a sound.
Yeah, kind of a woo, woo sound.
Yeah. And now for you, give it a name.
Just curious.
Okay.
I'd call it curious.
Yeah. Okay. So now you know what that feels like, right?
Yes.
Okay. So spin it again, spin it faster. Now start adding the gold from the confidence at the same time. Because you can have more than one thing going on at a time because we're complex beings.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It merges really nicely.
Yeah. It's pretty cool that way, right?
Very.
So how do you feel about maybe asking, doctors' offices if they'd be open to an alternative treatment?
Like it would actually be kind of fun.
Right. Exactly. So now, so it would be kind of fun, right? So where do you feel that fun?
Actually, pretty large chunk. Chest through the face and head solid circulates, but a lot wider than the other two are separate.
Okay. So start spinning that fun as well during this time. How does that feel?
Really good.
Yeah. So double the speed and give it a color, whatever it is, and make it the perfect color for fun. And spin that.
Oh, that's a blast.
Right. Okay. So now give that composite state a name.
Explorer.
Okay. Good. Explorer. So now what I'd like you to do is spin that. Imagine those colors, imagine them moving in you. Now imagine taking those colors and mixing them together to the point where, they're just going together, moving around.
Mhm.
And imagine yourself in a bubble of this color looking out at the world. And breathe in how that would smell. And look out at the world through this lens that you've built around yourself. How does that feel?
Dominant.
Yeah, not too bad, right?
Not bad at all.
Okay, now imagine yourself growing to be 20 feet tall or 50 feet tall and looking down at the world.
Intensifies it a lot.
Yeah,
Makes it feel very steady too.
exactly. So now imagine approaching doctor's offices or patients with this state that you've built for yourself.
It creates this real ease.
Right. And it's just called Explorer.
Yes.
Isn't that pretty cool?
Very.
Okay. So now just step back for a second and enjoy it. Okay, guys, you know what's next for you. Who wants to go next? Because Tim's
I guess I'll go.
okay, Mark. So you've got it. You have this confident state, this silver state, right?
Yes.
Right. So you know how to build that. And so have you ever been curious about something? I know you have, because I know you.
Many times.
Okay, curious enough to actually follow it up and really do some exploration.
Yes.
Okay, great. Where do you feel it?
Actually, I feel it coming in through my I guess through my core, my
Mhm.
center, my solar plexus,
Right.
sternum area.
Okay.
Like it's coming in, like the energy is coming in.
Okay. Well, it starts there. So it's probably, if you feel it coming in, it's probably moving.
Oh yes.
Okay. Which way is it going?
Actually, it's like going over my head, around, and it's like the exact opposite of my confidence.
Okay.
It's coming in and then going over my head, like going, yeah,
And
and
then
then
coming
going
back.
around the back.
Okay, good. So what color is it?
Actually, it's like yellowish. It's like a yellow thing, like yellowish, bright, like sun. Yeah, like the sun, the color of the sun.
Okay, great. Double the speed it's moving. And double the intensity of the color.
I need sunglasses. Oops, just kidding.
That's okay. Okay, so you feel it now, right?
Yes.
You can make it sparkle if you want. You can make it flash. If that
Very
makes
bright light.
Okay, good. Now run the confident one at the same time. And how does that feel?
Resistance at first, but then it start coalescing with each other.
Right. Because you're not used to feeling them together.
Not in this, yes, not in this perspective, like you
Right.
said, because they're coming together.
Right. So now just let them run. Right. How does that feel?
Exhilarating, because it's something different.
Yes, it is something different. Now, have you ever been playful about stuff?
Always.
Okay, good. So, you know what? Where do you feel playful?
Like my heart.
Okay. And it's
It's
moving.
like a light feeling.
And it's moving, right?
Yes.
Okay. You know which way it's moving.
Yes.
Double the speed.
Yes.
And double it again.
Yes.
Give it a color.
Yep.
Okay. So now run through them as fast as you can so they're all running together. And notice the colors as they just start growing into a bubble around you with the colors still moving. And
Very intense.
they're moving together.
Yes.
Okay, now look at the world through this bubble. How does it feel?
Feels good. Feels very, very confident. Very, like I'm ready to conquer the world, kind of.
Okay, great. Now imagine yourself growing to be 50 feet tall with this bubble around you. And look at the world from this standpoint.
It feels good. Feels very how can I say? Yeah, it feels different.
Yeah.
Like it's like I'm looking at the world like a child, kind of like when you're looking down at a child. That's what it feels like now,
Right.
with all that energy and that feeling that I'm having internally. I look at the world like it's a child.
Right. So would it be hard to call somebody up or sell them something or just interact with them with this feeling? Or would it be something that's just relaxed where you're okay, they're okay, and you can just have a nice conversation?
I think this will help. I feel a strong connection.
Right. Exactly. So give this state a name, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
First thing that comes to mind. And you don't have to tell anybody. This is for you.
Alliance.
Okay, good. So now sit back and enjoy Alliance for a while. Just let it run and let it get stronger so it's locked in. And when you say Alliance, it comes right back.
Yep.
Okay, great. Richard.
Yeah.
So you have confidence right now? But I knew you were confident before, but now you know how to generate it.
Yeah.
I know you're curious about stuff. You know what it's like to be curious. Where do you feel it?
Upper chest, and then through my, comes kind of up through my throat, my face, and goes out.
So it goes up the front to your face?
And it goes out. It goes out in a curve.
Okay, before it goes out, just before it goes out, pull it back in so it circles around. Get stronger then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So double the speed it's spinning.
Yeah.
Okay. Give it a color.
Yeah.
Okay, make it twice as vivid and double the speed again.
Yeah.
And make it sparkle if you want, make it flash. However, it's perfect for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now confident and curious are running together, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, how does that change the way you use your confidence then?
More generous in my confidence.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's more generous. It's more caring about what the other person wants, right? Now that you've got those two, you know what it's like to be playful.
Yeah.
Right? Where do you feel that?
In my stomach, it always tickles. It's like a circle.
Right. And it moves, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't feel it. So you know which way it moves.
Yeah.
Now, double the speed and give it a color and make it much more intense. Make it that perfect color for you. Make it as vivid as possible so you feel it even more. And maybe there's a sound that's attached to it also. Okay, now you're running confident and you're running curious and now you're running playful. and create this bubble around you with all three colors moving and flowing the way they're supposed to. And look out the world through it. Breathe it in. Notice how the world is a little different place now.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, now imagine you're 50 feet taller, or however that is in meters, which I guess would be about 37.5 meters taller. And look at the world through this creation you've made for yourself.
Wow.
And how is it easier to deal with people this way?
The Lego pieces.
That you can just deal with them and have some fun and interact with them.
Yeah.
And it lets you relax and just get to know them to see if they're the right people for you to do business with.
Yeah.
To have any type of interaction with.
Amazing.
Now give it a name. It's just for you. You don't have to tell us if you don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you have it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all three of you, come on back to this. How do you guys feel?
Fantastic.
Great.
Mark, you're muted. Mark, are you there? Mark, can you hear me?
He put in chat that he's away for a moment.
Okay, well, that's fine. So now you guys have created, in the space of less than 5 minutes each, a compound state for yourselves. This is kind of useful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you each know the name for that compound state, right? Are you in it right now?
I wasn't. But it's easy to get back into.
Yeah, you just got right back into it, right?
Yeah.
All you had to do was say the name and you're there. And that is the beginning of an anchor for yourself. So while we were doing this and creating these exquisite states, we created an anchor to it as well to bring them back. Mark, you're back.
Yes.
Okay.
I
So-
miss what I miss.
The secret of the universe. Then that was the most important thing I was going to tell everybody today.
It's 42.
Yes. Okay. So you know what? You were not in that state when you left, right? Now that you're back, say the name of that state and does it come back?
Yes.
Okay. Is it as strong as it was before?
It's getting there. It's accelerating. It's getting there.
Okay, good. Okay, so now all of you go back into your state. Say the name of the state. Now I want you to imagine that there is a little touch screen in front of you. And on that touch screen is a slide. That slide, as you'll notice, if when you slide it, you put your finger on it, reach out and touch it. When you slide it, the state gets more intense. So you know which way to slide it so it gets more intense because it's for you. It's your personal control panel. So make it where it's really intense, where it feels really, really good. You know how that feels. And when you've got it, just back it down maybe a quarter. And you may hear a sound going, and then back it down another quarter. And then back it down another quarter. And then increase the intensity. Because you have absolute control over how you want this to feel. So when you've got it, let me know.
Got it.
How does it feel?
Great.
Because sometimes it's not important to be at 150%. Sometimes 75% is more than enough. Because it's important not to blow the other person out. It's important to go to just where that person needs you to go. Richard, do you have it?
So am I moving the dial up and down? So I moved it down.
Well, that's okay. Now move it all the way to the top.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, you notice the difference in the feeling and the intensity.
Yeah, when it goes up and down, very much.
Yeah. So now you know how to control it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Mark, do you have it?
Yes.
How'd it feel?
Feels great. Feels strong.
Right, because you get to control all of these things.
Just that, having that ability, that's the part that feels the strong part, to control the intensity.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You get to control the intensity. Now, guess what we just did there? Remember we were going to talk about anchoring? Well, these are anchors we just set for you. You know, because anchoring is not just used with other people. It's very useful in using it for ourselves. Hey, anybody watch any Tony Robbins videos?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have Netflix, there's one called Tony Robbins, I Am Not Your Guru, which, you know, follows him with his date with destiny program. And it's actually a good documentary. I recommended it actually to a friend of mine whose son is, you know, having some issues. And I said, look, I'm not saying you should go to this, but it does give some really interesting things on opening up and all that he could use with his problems. He said, well, how much do you charge? I said, well, it's better that I don't do it because I'm, you know, as far as he's concerned, I'm dad's friend. It's not quite as useful, but you'll notice if you watch that, it's actually quite good. Tony has his little thing where before he goes on stage, he'll do this and then he'll do a little spin and then he goes on stage. That's one of his self anchors to get himself into the right state to be on stage and to be, you know, this larger than life figure. So if you get a chance to do that, you'll see an example of somebody using a self anchor. And when you do this, you have an example for yourself of having set a self anchor. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we can elicit this the next time we need to be in a situation where it's appropriate and useful.
Well, I think it's always appropriate to be confident and playful and curious.
Good point.
Kind of a good way to go through life. That's why this is a kind of a very good base state for it. And so that's why this is actually an intro to anchoring, very artfully, because we were doing it and I wasn't telling you we were doing it. And yet you all got it. So how did that work?
it feels very natural. It's like as if not, you're like, you're showing us like the steps, as opposed to, you're not showing, but you're showing, but you're not teaching, which is much more, as you would say earlier, softer. And I'm speaking for myself. When I was receiving it, it was much more softer in a sense of, so it was more easily acceptable in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Right. The first anchors that we actually want to do is with ourselves, because when you know how it feels, then you'll be able to start being able to do it with other people. So what was going on during this time? Well, when I was setting the anchors for you and then giving you control over them, what did we do? We created an anchor, and then by giving you the control to make it more intense and and less intense, that is what's called a sliding anchor, because it's sliding the intensity up and down. Whether you're using a dial, whether you're using a slide, doesn't matter. It's the same concept, that you're creating the intensity because you own this anchor now. Does that make sense?
It's like my own anchor. Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
It's like, because it's unique to me.
Yeah.
And I instead of saying you telling me what it is, I'm creating my own unique signature.
Right. Tim?
Yeah, train of thought gone. But no, it's great. It feels totally natural and just feels mine.
Right. Exactly. And it's an anchor that you've set. Have you done anchoring before?
A little bit, but I've done quite a bit of state control, but never combined them with energetic work of any kind.
Okay. And how does it feel doing it this way?
A lot stronger, a lot easier, and a bit less physiology dependent.
Okay, guess what? All of this stuff is modular. It's kind of things that people don't realize. It's like all this stuff is modular. So what we do here, you can plug into the other stuff that you know, as long as it works. Right? And so it's understanding where they fit together, but it is modular. It does fit. It's just whether it's appropriate, or sometimes even whether it's actually as efficient as doing it a different way. But it's not like this is right, that's wrong, that type of thing. It's really, in the situation, everything is pretty much modular, and it comes down to results.
Whatever works.
Right. That's right. Richard Bandler has said NLP is what works. So it kind of gives it a better meaning than most people have. Richard, how about you?
Yeah, it's powerful. I think it's something I can use. I just say the name to remind myself, and I get into that state.
We'll go back into that state, right?
Okay.
Let's do it now, right? Slide up the intensity all the way, so you really feel it. In fact, go up, instead of 37.5 meters, go up to 42.75 meters.
Okay.
Because they do metric over there in Canada. Okay, now you really feel it. Slide that, turn that intensity all the way up.
Yeah.
To really feel it. Now give it a name. Because you knew what that name was even as you were sliding it up. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now come back to us. And just relax for a second. Now say the name.
Yeah, it's coming back. Yeah.
Right. And the more you do it, the more intense it'll be right at the beginning. Right? But you can always adjust the intensity, because the whole point is with this state, you have control. With the anchor, you bring it back and you can control the level of the state.
Beautiful.
Right. And so this is an easy way to get into really good state control. Because if somebody is pushing against your state control, against, things that you're confident in, you could be more curious then. You can, instead of being stressed that they're pushing back on you, you might begin wondering, well, what do they really want out of this that they're pushing back? Because if you're not communicating enough to them, maybe that's why they're pushing back. And that's where curiosity can come into play. That's why it's in there. So it's not about somebody attacking you. It could just be they don't believe in what you have or what you do. And that's okay, because it's not about you. And so this is how your state flexes to fit the situation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if somebody's pushing back on you and saying, well, I don't believe in acupuncture, right? It's, as opposed to, taking that as an attack, isn't it better to say, well, what is it about it that you don't believe?
Definitely gives it actually somewhere to go.
Right. So you notice how the state flexes then to fit the situation.
Right. One comes forward, one comes back, and they allows you to actually meet them where they're at.
Right. And that allows you to actually adjust the levels within your state, because again, you have different controls over it. So I want all three of you to go back into your state, say the name, right? And then notice now when you look at your control panel, you have the intensity setting that you can have. And notice that now you'll have one for each of the states that make up this composite state. Right? So you'll have confident, you'll have a control for curious, and you'll have a control for playful. Now, just for fun, have them all start as the same, at the same intensity, at the same level. Turn up playful a little bit. So now playful is more prevalent in the state. Notice how the color changes a little bit to reflect that. Notice how the sound may change a little bit. Notice how the feeling that of the spinning changes a little bit. And notice where this state with this mixture would be useful. Okay, now take them back even and bring up curious a little bit more. And notice how when curious is more prevalent, how the state feels different. And think about a situation where maybe your approach would be a little bit different and how the conversation may be a little bit different. And when you have that, pick a combination that would feel good for you to explore. Could be a little bit more confidence, could be a little bit more curiosity, or it could even be a little bit more playful. Just to where it fits really well for you. And when you have it, you can lock in any of these settings and play with them whenever you want, so you can bring them back for any situation that you want. Because it's your mind and it's your controls. You can even give each of the combinations a different name as well. So you can make it like a preset or a widget if you're a computer person. And you could just bring it back and create a widget for each one that you want to shortcut your way back to this combination state that you want. And when you have it, take a deep breath, come back and let me know how it feels. Did you guys get it?
Feeling centered.
Okay, so you know that you've played with the combinations?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, you find ones that you like better?
When I'm like the playful, when I'm mixing the playful sequence.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you can bring that back whenever you want now, right?
Yes, but I have to focus on it first.
Okay,
It's not a reflexive state yet.
okay, so if you give it, if you actually make an icon of it or a shortcut to that, you'll be able to get it right back. Tim, how'd it go for you?
Really versatile. I've set 3 presets.
Okay.
Doctor's office, alternative health practice, and surgeon's office.
Mm-hmm. Great. And they're slightly different, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a very different balance between the different levels and different characteristics that would feel more appropriate in those environments.
Mm-hmm. And how about one for social? Wouldn't that be good to have?
Definitely.
Okay, well, you got to do it now. So
Hey, you mentioned it. I got distracted. Sounded good.
it's not all work. When you make it more fun, then it's never work.
Yeah, it's all still fun.
Exactly.
Even when it's work.
Exactly. Richard, how about you?
Yeah, I've got a resource. No.
So did you preset some settings?
In the future,
Well, you can do it whenever you want.
I did it for the future.
Okay. How'd it feel?
Good. It changed the
Okay.
experience.
Okay, you could do it with, preset for anything. That's the whole point of having the different. What I know, people teach these combination states, and they're very powerful and they're really good. What I found is that actually, when you've just started making it so it flexes to fit the situation,
Oh,
and so the different levels change depending on the situation, then you get that much more flexibility in that particular set of states.
that makes a lot of sense.
Right. That's where it helps to, preset some things so you can just instantly hit that anchor and get right back into that particular nuanced state. So you have the default one that has the 3, which is great, or you
Yeah.
even have the individual states. Sometimes you want
Nice.
to just be confident. So what did we do here today? We have had 3 different in discrete states, right? We set up a composite state of the 3, right? And we set up presets for the different mixtures of states. We've set up a control panel for your intensity, as well as to bring back the nuanced states. So we've covered quite a bit where we've actually done a lot of anchoring and we've done the state control. So any questions on where we've gotten to this point?
I'll get back to you. There's a lot of new material.
Well, I hope so. If it was just old stuff, you wouldn't come up and you wouldn't come anymore. You know, you wouldn't show up for these things if it was just stuff you already knew.
It's always good to reinforce, but it's awesome stuff.
Okay, good. Tim, Richard, any questions?
Love it.
I'm sorry?
I love it.
Oh, good.
No questions. Nice and clear.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so now we're going to start getting introing to anchoring other people. Because now you've kind of got an idea of how to do some anchoring for yourself. And what I would encourage you to do is explore other states that you may want to have in your life that you want to bring back easily, and start creating those states the same way we did this, right? With the spinning, with the colors, with the sounds and the feelings, and then just create anchors to these things. Again, give them a name and you can bring them right back. So, I mean, you know, there's the three are really good basic ones, but they're not the only ones. And you don't have to add everything into a big composite. You can have discrete ones, but I've found that when you have some basic composite ones, they work really well. So we have about 15 more minutes. So let's go into the anchoring, right? So again, anchoring other people is you're creating essentially a feedback loop with the other person. And so, you know, we all hear a lot about anchoring. There's a lot of different ways to anchor. You can touch somebody and create an anchor. Not so easy in the era of Zoom, unfortunately, because we're not in the same room as each other. But some of us have done more anchoring. I know, Richard, you've probably done with touch anchors. Richard?
Yes.
You've done touch anchors before, right?
Yeah.
Mark, did you do touch anchors?
I read about it, but I haven't experienced it.
Okay, well, as long as we're doing Zoom stuff for a while, you may not. So we're not going to concentrate on that right now. Tim,
Okay.
you. Well, we can't touch each other through this, so we've got to make do with what we have, and they're not as useful in many situations. So we're going to be learning, more spatial anchoring at this point. Tim, how about you?
I've seen it done. Haven't done it myself.
Okay, and touch anchors again, probably because we're not doing it. It's hard to feel it.
But I just realized that I use one a lot.
Oh, good.
Anytime that I check a pulse on a patient, I always tell them to relax. So anytime I touch their pulse, they automatically relax after a little while.
Okay, we'll play with that one then. Okay, so we'll play with that a little bit because you actually get to touch people, since as an essential worker, for most of us who are not doing that type of work, or when I'm not, coaching somebody or something like that, it's more of a social situation that type of thing, and than a professional situation. But we can work on that one too, and play with that. So
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry about that. In regarding to Tim, since he's a doctor, right? So when you tell someone to relax, you're coming from a position of authority, right? Like they're the patient and you're the doctor. So there's that command tonality that you taught us last time. So does that have any? Is that a factor?
Not really, unless you actually, and this is where it ties in. This is why I had to state. So, Mark, keep your mic on.
Okay.
So essentially, doctors have a position of authority. Tim, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
However, how often have you told somebody to relax and they stiffened up?
About 50%.
Exactly. So, Mark, to your point, sometimes the position of authority works against you in that case, because not Tim, but like other doctors, and we learned this from when we were really little kids. When we go to a pediatrician, they say relax, and then they, stab us with a needle.
I do that.
Yes, you do, but yours are a smaller gauge. They're a different gauge. But we generally that's what happens when we get a shot, right? So I'm sure you remember when you were a little kid, they would say relax, and they the worst thing is kind of like, when they say oh, it won't hurt too much or something like that, which is the wrong thing to say, because then you're anticipating it. As people who study this stuff, you might want to just say, what Richard Bandler recommends. He says, soften. And then and basically when you tell somebody and you touch them and you relax your hand at the same time and say, soften, right? So if your hand has tension in it to begin with, and you touch the person in the spot and you say, and you relax your hand at the same time as you say it, soften.
Right, but you have to relax slow enough that the nervous system can actually catch on with you.
It catches really on really quickly. You'd be surprised. But you just say soften, and you'll feel the muscle start to relax, because it's catching on through your hand and through their skin, which is pretty much a Feldenkrais type of technique. So basically, again, it's not saying that it's going to hurt at all. It's just giving the command of what you want and using your voice that way. Mark, to your point with the command tonality, but it's also to what we were doing. If you're generating a relaxed state while you do it, that passes to the other person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just the position, it's how that position is used that's very important. So unfortunately, most doctors don't know that stuff, and they say, this won't hurt too much, and then they give you something that actually does. Especially when you're a little kid, it's something that it's just something that's how they're trained to do it, as opposed to if they were distracting the person by talking to them and they just did it, it would be over much quicker. So rather than calling somebody's attention to the spot that they're going to jab you with a with a syringe. So from that standpoint, again, when you're talking about anchoring, you have to generate the state that you want to anchor first. You have to go first. So if you want somebody to feel good, you have to feel good first. If you were feeling like you have an alternative motive, say for example, if you were, if you wanted something from the person and you want to anchor them to give it to you, generally that won't work, because that person will feel it and feel like you're manipulating them, as opposed to just generating a really comfortable feeling in the person. What is important about anchoring is you have to understand generating the feeling that you want in that person. So if you're playful while doing it, right, or if you're confident, then if you bring those two states up while you're doing it, you'll have a much better chance to anchor that person. Does that make sense?
Yes, you have to give them something to match.
Yeah, go there first.
Yeah, you have to go first. So when you're anchoring them, you're actually generating that feeling because you want it to pass to them. The second thing I always do, okay, is that when you anchor, you have to elicit that feeling in them as well. So it's not just enough for you to feel it, but you have to elicit it. You have to generate it in them also. Okay, so if you say, this is the simplest way that I like to do it, is basically by contrast. So Richard, you've studied with Kenrick before, I know, because that's where we first met. The way he teaches anchoring, it's a little bit old school in how he does it, right? So it's generate the feeling and then you anchor, right?
Girls now.
I find it a little bit easier and more efficient, especially if you're doing it verbally and you're doing it spatially, is by contrast. Okay, so if you use a contrast where you say, there's some things that you really don't want and some things you really do, right? So once you do that and you're feeling that feeling, it's easy to set that anchor because they'll go there, right? Because they won't go to the things that they don't want. You're hitting the anchor on the thing that they do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So for example, it's like, I know there's some things that make you feel really, not good, but there are things that make you really feel good. Right? So you see how easy that is. So if I generate that feeling and I hit it again, you notice that you feel it. Yes? No?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Because I've elicited it and it's just very basic that way, where you're actually just eliciting it by contrast. Because the brain works in duality. Yes, no, right? Right, wrong, I want, I don't want. So it's easier to lock in that. People tend to be too complicated when they're doing things. It's when you actually get that started that you get to start setting your anchors. And an anchor is not just like a one-off thing. A lot of times, I mean, that's the way it's kind of sold in a lot of times. But a lot of times it takes multiple times of hitting that anchor, eliciting it and hitting it again in order for it to really stick. Those of you who are familiar with hypnosis are probably familiar with the term fractionation. Has everybody heard of that term?
Yes.
Yes.
Richard?
Yep.
Right. So it's compounding it. So it's really important when you're doing anchors to keep that in mind, that sometimes it takes more than once to keep going. You have to go back to it. You may not get the immediate reaction, but it does work. And it works, oddly enough. We did this right on camera, right? So you all felt it when I'm hitting the anchor, right? It's because I'm generating a feeling in myself when I hit the anchor that you're feeling it, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now if I just hit the anchor and I'm not generating the feeling, what is there?
Nothing.
Not much.
Right. Because I'm not generating a feeling as opposed to. It's weird that way, right?
Yeah. Big
Now,
difference.
now here's the funny thing. Even if you couldn't see me and I did it on like I was on the phone, it works. I don't know why it works, but it works. As long as you elicit it properly, if you're hitting it somehow, it works for the other person. Now, one of the important things to understand about anchoring, and this is different from the way they used to teach it, they used to say, okay, wait till you get to the peak of the emotion and then hit your anchor. And that's too late, because when you do that, you'll miss it 9 times out of 10. And the other time, there's no place to go from when they're at the peak. Whereas if you hit it early on, when you're generating it and eliciting that state and eliciting that feeling from them, that's the time to set the anchor, because then you can compound it, you can fractionate it, you can slide it, make it bigger, right? Or make it less, because you're not there at the top where you have no place else to go but down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that different from the way you may have heard about it before?
definitely. It's like what you just said. It's the old way versus this new way. I mean, this this new definition of it.
Well, it's not so much a new definition as just a refinement, because again, the idea used to be if you can hit that peak, you want to hit it so they're going back into the peak. But again, if it's so easy to miss, it's your time window is infinitesimal. And then what happens is that if you miss it, then you're hitting it going down. So so if you anchor in this a feeling that's diminishing, is that useful?
That would be the exact opposite.
Pretty much. That's why people didn't have success with it. So does that make sense? This is an intro to doing it artfully. The first step is the most important step, which is generating the state in yourself. And now you've got self-anchoring, and now we've just started introducing anchoring other people. So questions, anybody?
Yes, can you go over spatial anchoring again?
Okay, so spatial anchoring is basically you're anchoring a spot in space. So as opposed to touching the person.
Oh, that's what you meant. Okay.
Yes. So again, I can kind of do this, and like you can't even see me touching the screen where your name is, but it doesn't really have much of an effect as opposed to this.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
And
and it's more useful in most situations, like if you're at work or if you're in social situations. Sometimes it's appropriate to touch, but often it's not, especially nowadays because you get some COVID cops, saying don't touch that person. So you have to be, you can get the effect primarily with spatial. Spatial is also very useful if you're presenting to other people. Thing to remember is keep it simple for yourselves, right? Put the positive ones on one side, the not so positive ones on the other side, and make it consistent for yourself. There's so much less to remember, because a lot of times people want to say, okay, for this person, I'm going to do these anchors. And then for the next person, I'm going to do these. And they're all over the place. And it's so hard to remember if you just keep it simple, the positive ones and the not so positive ones. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, that definitely clears things up. In regarding to like, it's in the age of COVID where we use Zoom, and how would you like, would it be like, I guess a trigger word, would that be an anchor? Like you have, if you're working with a client and it's something that, like you said, triggering feelings, fractionating feelings, like how would you recommend like using trigger words as an anchor?
I think I don't tend to do it that way. Yes, you can.
Okay.
The reason, well, we did it with your own states, right?
Yes. Well, like, yeah, what you said, what you said earlier about the words that we use.
But for other people, I generally don't. I use more spatial. Even in the words, even in the world of Zoom or on the telephone, like I was saying, if I set the anchor and, when I'm doing it, like as if I'm there, it works even when they can't see you. Maybe, I can give you, Tim, you're probably familiar with Vibrational Influence, David's program.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a vibrational component to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain, I would say, but it works. The explanation part, I can't explain. It works. I'm just saying it works.
Yeah, most explanations, you're either going to go very far into metaphysics, or you can technically go into physics, but none of it sounds solid no matter how you describe it.
Yes, it works. So if you do it, it works, then it works. If you don't do it and it doesn't work, if you don't do it and it's not going to work. If you do it and it doesn't work, generally it's because you didn't elicit the state or you didn't generate the state enough in yourself. So you have to have an intention when you hit an anchor. Like if I'm doing this, it doesn't work. But if I do this, it works. You have to have the intention when you hit the anchor. Any other
Wow.
questions? Richard, any questions? Because if you're talking and you're
How do we time it? Because you mentioned don't do it right at the peak. How do we time it in a conversation so
well,
it's at the right time?
yeah, that's where it starts with the elicitation early. So, if I was using it in a real estate situation, like with you, right? In your situation, if I say, well, let me ask you this, there are things that are not important for you in a house and things that really are. So when you think about the things that are important for you, what's important for you in the house?
Big.
Right. So I started early when I'm eliciting it. And when they're doing it, then I can just hit it again. But that's where curiosity comes in. I'm generating that curiosity. Right. So that's where generating that state is so important when you're eliciting the feelings that they want, which is why, oddly enough, curiosity ended up in this among the 3 states we covered. Does that make sense, Richard?
Oh, that was nice.
Tim, any questions?
Oh. No questions, just digestion.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the replay so I can actually absorb this, slowly take it in chunks.
Yeah, I'm cutting out that part that you were gone because that's where the secret of life was. Since you left. Yeah,
Cold, very cold.
it is cold outside.
Do you have a series of like a template with the questions that you went through to elicit that program?
I don't have a template of questions. I generally, and this is where it's going to go more into, I will be covering things around story as well, because it's important to pay attention to the other person. If you start getting into things like templates, unfortunately, it's very much, you kind of get into a thing where you're in your own head as opposed to paying attention to the other person. And it all comes out of curiosity, Richard. So if you're genuinely curious, those questions will come to you about what that person wants.
No, it was the one. That's true. The ones about where we go through that thing where you look at the spinning and turning it into sparkles.
No, it's pretty much a protocol. So when we're doing it, right? So obviously you get a feeling for when you go into state. So that starts off, asking, where do you feel it?
Yes.
Right? Where does it move? Because in order to continue to feel it, it has to move. Otherwise you'd habituate. You wouldn't feel it anymore. Right? So you find out which way it's moving, right? Then you start going into the visual, auditory, kinesthetics of it, where what do you see? What color is it? Right? Make it the perfect color, spin it so it's double the speed, triple the speed, however it is, whatever is the best for you, right? So that goes to kinesthetic. Does it make a sound? Yes. Okay, then you have the auditory, right? So you're immersing the person in that, in that state, in the feeling of that state, in what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're experiencing, right? And then you say, give it a name, right? So again, locks it in. They're making they're making an anchor. You can also say, set up the, their control panel to begin with, and then say, okay, on the control panel, there's a button for it or whatever, label that button this and then hit it, right? You could do it how it's flexible. And then you do the other states. So you don't have to do a compound state. You could do a simple state. But you could do a basic one, compound ones. I like to do, show you the basic, some basic ones so you can build more for yourself. And now you know how to build more compound ones.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. So but it's having the state that's so important as the basis for all the other ones. If you have a good state, you can get by without a lot of the bells and the whistles anyway. That's why it all starts from having a great state. It's really the foundation of being able to do all the other stuff. So is this useful for you guys?
Yes.
Very.
Definitely.
Good. So I guess if you don't have any other questions, I would appreciate positive reviews on Meetup. And if you don't have my books, I did put out a new one recently called Influential Rapport. You can get it on Amazon. And I have the 5 Keys to Hypnotic Selling. If anybody has those, Mark, thank you for leaving your review. I would appreciate reviews. And, I guess we'll see each other next time. I am putting together, as I was explaining earlier, a new self-development program. It really is about kind of emerging as opposed to adding on stuff. So it's going to be very cool. I haven't decided on a name for it yet, but it is pretty much developed as far as a protocol. And so there'll be, some sessions on that. It won't be on Meetup, but it'll be an interesting course. Planning on maybe doing an NLP practitioner later on in the year, if anybody's interested, and doing an influence and persuasion intensive. So watch out for those things. And we'll, of course, have another meetup pretty soon. If you guys have topics you want to cover, I would appreciate it if you would contact me about it.
Continuation of anchoring.
Yeah.
Continuation of anchoring.
It's selling.
You gotta get this part down first.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what we'll do between this meeting and next meeting,
All
and
right,
find out the secret to the universe.
Well, in that case, you no breaks. You gotta sit through it.
Slide of mouth, like the language.
Oh, you mean reframing and stuff?
Yeah, reframe.
Okay, well, we could do that. Yeah, you see, the way sleight of mouth is often taught is unfortunately very mechanical. And I don't really like the term, but really it's about listening to what the other person wants and being able to reframe it differently. These are aspects of questioning which are very important. Softening and questioning. So that's kind of the key to it. And yeah, we can do a lot of that stuff on reframing. Cool. It's Tim, did you see the sales, the stealth selling secrets that I was in?
I think I saw you in Killer Influence.
Okay. Yeah. In the stealth selling secrets, actually, there's one part where a guy is giving objections, and that's where this quote unquote sleight of mouth comes in really, really well. So if you get a chance to see that, it's on there. Yeah, we'll definitely be covering some of that stuff, Richard. No problem. I consider it, overcoming objections more than anything else.
Yeah.
That's why I just really don't like the term sleight of mouth. Again, the way it's taught is a little bit too mechanical. Kenrick's course, I think, was a good intro to it, but he likes to teach things mechanically. And I think it takes a while to really understand it, where it's more of a mindset, actually, to understanding. Yeah, it's more of a mindset. So let's just do something really quick. So if you had something like that was an objection that you hear.
Yeah, I'm already happy with my current service provider.
Well, I understand that, but let me ask you this: how do you know that your current service provider is actually the best person for you. When if you actually just listen to what we have and with no obligation, then you can really make an informed decision.
Well, if it doesn't work out, I'll give them some more time. Then maybe I'll contact you.
Well, that would be great. I appreciate it. Well, let me ask you this. How much more time would you need in order to make a decision? Because obviously I want to be able to get you the best service that possible for you.
Hmm.
And this way we can fit in something in both our schedules that works for both of us.
I'll give it another month.
Okay, great.
See if we can sell this thing then.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, and obviously I wish you all the best in this month. Would it be okay to contact you in a month from now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's terrific. So how did that feel?
Good conversation.
Right. Because again, it's not a matter of going head to head. It's going around finding out what his objection really is.
Mm.
So he said, well, I feel an obligation to give him more time. So then we narrowed it down to how long? A month.
Mm.
Right. So, okay. So is it okay to call you back in a month? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll call you in a month and I'll look forward to speaking with you then.
Yeah.
And guess what? Because you agreed to that time frame, you're much more likely to pick up the phone when I call you.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Right? Because I already have buy-in then. So what I did was I actually started shifting by steps. So the shift for you is smaller. So most people want to have this big turnaround.
Right.
It's too big for a lot of people to accept because then they have, that's where you get buyer's remorse. Whereas if you have buy-in at the little steps, that gives momentum, and also the person has made agreements along the way.
Mm.
Right? So we can get into more of that. Again, a
I
lot
love
of
it.
people try to go too fast.
That's true.
About getting people along the steps. So Tim, in your case, you know, if you got a you know, a doctor, right? So and you wanted to move them to where they would accept acupuncture in the practice. It's not necessarily say going from only Western medicine to acupuncture, right? So it's like, have you explored, you know, alternative treatments? Yes. Okay, so what's your success been? Well, it's been a little bit mixed. So sometimes it's worked, sometimes it hasn't. Yes, right. So then you've moved it a little bit more.
Mm.
And then, so what alternative methods have you tried? Right? Oh, I tried this, this, and this. Okay, so that starts opening up the conversation, right?
Right.
And so have they tried it with you? No. How are you different? Opens the conversation more. Right? So you see, you're
Nice.
pushing against the boundaries. But if you go, if they say, have you tried alternative medicine? No. Well, you should do it with me. Right?
Right.
That's a big jump.
Definitely.
Right? So that's where it's any type of persuasion, it's important to get the feeling for where those boundaries are, and then how do you stretch them and push them as opposed to just breaking them. When you break them, that's where you get resistance.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it works amazingly well because then they start just going along with it. That goes towards the conversational model that'll be in the intensive boot camp. You know, where it actually becomes much more of a dynamic conversation as opposed to yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, where the boundaries start narrowing. Mark, questions?
Not right now.
Okay, cool.
I'm sure I'll send you a lot of emails.
Okay. Okay. So guys, thanks so much for sticking with us. Yeah, sticking together. You guys have been a really good audience, and you know, you participated, which is really great. So you know, this is important to have people participate. So On a small group like this, I think next time we can probably do without having the mics off all the time. So it's easier to have conversations, but on a larger group, that'll be more appropriate. But I think this is fun. I think some people miss things, but I think they'll actually be watching on the replay.
Well, thank you very much. It was great.
Okay.
Definitely, thank you. Opened my eyes to a lot. It's kind of like like I read all those books and all. It's it's kind of like it's kind of dry, but interacting and having experience from you guys are definitely, it helps me pick it up, learn a lot more faster.
Well, definitely. And as we go along and as, if we get a bigger group of people, then, we'll do breakout rooms on this stuff. But I wanted to get some basic things. You guys are now ahead because when you have great states, that's the key to starting to get more of the other pieces together. Again, foundational skill sets.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And I will see you guys next time.
Can we invite people to this next time?
Well, yeah, invite them to join the group.
Okay. Awesome.
And then they'll, then they can be on and, definitely, they can't necessarily sign up unless they're part of the group.
Okay. Yes.
That's kind of how Meetup works.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And gentlemen, have an awesome evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Richard.
Richard,
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, James. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Richard, great to hear from you again.
I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope you liked it. It's, again, a little bit different than our foundations, but it's a little different take.
I like it.
Good. All right. Well, let me know if you have any other questions, and I'll catch you next time.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for that.
Okay, good night.